What is up, guys? EJ here, aka Puckbon007, and welcome to the Movie Reviewers 100, this great collaboration channel on YouTube that I am proud to be a part of. So this week is a very cool week for me. It's two Corey's week, and I'm leading off this week because Alan, I believe, is on vacation. So that's obviously why we didn't get a video yesterday. But this is a very special week for me because obviously, if you're a child from the 80s, you grew up with the two Coreys, Corey Haim, the late great, sadly, Corey Haim passed away a couple years ago, and Corey Feldman, who a lot of people thought would go before Corey Haim. Interestingly enough, I mean, well publicized his issues with drugs. The two were inseparable as sort of teen heartthrobs in the late 80s. Of course, they made the vampire classic, The Lost Boys, from '87, which I'm hoping, of course, will get covered by one of my fellow collab channel buddies this week, because it's a great vampire film, great horror film as well. But the film I chose is very special to me, and that's the 1988 classic teen comedy driver's license hit, License to Drive. The reason I chose this film, I must have seen this movie over 100 times over the years. It's one of the few films that I actually owned on VHS while I was living in England before we moved here in 1992. It was this, The Burbs with Tom Hanks from 1989, and Top Gun. Those are the films I'd watch over and over in sort of when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 before we moved here. And I absolutely love License to Drive. I've seen it so many times, so many great lines. I just love the characters, everything about it. It was sort of my idea of what the quintessential high school teenage life was like, especially when it comes to getting your driver's license. That's a big rite of passage for most American teenagers. Interestingly enough, after I moved here, I didn't get my driver's license until I was 18. I didn't really care about it that much. I'm not a big car guy, even though that's what I do for a living now. I drive and but anyway, yeah, getting my own driver's license was never a big deal to me. But obviously in this film, it is a big deal. It's the whole movie, in fact. Corey Haim plays Les Anderson, guy about to turn 16 and obviously take his driving exam. The first scene is a great sort of weird dream sequence where he's on a school bus and he sees the beautiful girl of his dreams, Mercedes Lane, played by Heather Graham, who of course made her big screen debut in this film. I believe she was 17 when she starred in this movie. Absolutely gorgeous. I sort of fell in love with Heather Graham after watching this movie, and I've liked her ever since. I've always sort of rooted for her in movies. She's just a really beautiful actress, obviously very good, great in so many great movies. Loved her in stuff like Boogie Nights and Swingers, shit like that. Always cool to see her pop up, and I just fell in love with her in this film as Mercedes. Just gorgeous body, great sort of curly blonde hair, very innocent and very cool to Les, played by Corey Haim. So he sees her sitting in a red Ferrari, and a red Ferrari was sort of my ideal dream car when I was growing up as well. I rooted for Ferrari when it came to Formula One racing, and especially red. Red's my sort of second favorite color, and sort of a red Ferrari Testarossa was like the big deal back in those days, back in the late 80s. Convertible, obviously, and that was like the dream car of this film as well. So he sees her sitting in the car, and he tries to break out the bus. He's actually chained to the seats with leg chains. He sort of breaks open the back door of the school bus, jumps out, and then the crazy bus driver turns the bus around, tries to run him down. Then there's sort of a big sort of car chase, and then we find out that he's actually sleeping through his driver's ed course, and then he wakes up, and then the driver's ed teacher has a great line. He says, it's punks like you that paramedics end up scraping off the road at 4 in the morning. For your sake and the safety of others, I hope you fail your driving exam. Perfect example of what people, especially his sister, think of Les and his teachers and so on. He's sort of a lazy, fun-loving kid. And then, of course, we meet Dean, played by Corey Feldman. I love when he takes Les home on his bike, when he's sort of bombing down the neighborhood streets on the bike, and then he drops him off in front of his house and like throws him off the bike. Front door service. I just love that part. And then we have all these great moments with his family. Great supporting cast. Carol Kane, very well-known character actress, plays his mother. She's really funny. I love when they're having dinner and she slops on her plate this huge mound of potatoes, mashed potatoes. It looks horrible. And then she puts ketchup all over it. And then she says, "For your information, I had this when I was pregnant with all of you." And obviously she's pregnant with twins. She has 3 kids already. Les, his sister, played by Nina, I'm gonna mess up this name, Simezko. It's a Polish name. She's very funny in certain scenes. And then there's a young boy called Rudy. I think it's Rudy. Little blonde kid. He doesn't really have much to do in the movie, but so there's a great dinner scene. The dad is played by Richard Mazer. I'm not sure what else he's done. He's sort of a recognizable actor at this time, I believe. He's very funny as well as the father. So it's a really good supporting cast. And so on this sort of opening night, Les and Dean, I love when Dean shows up while they're eating dinner and he's like leaning on the horn just the whole time. And Les is just sitting there eating, smiling, like really, really funnily as they're eating dinner. And then the mother yells, "Get out!" It's very funny. And then they go to this party. Dean, Les, and their other friend, Charles, played by, I have no idea, it's an Italian name. Don't recognize him as an actor. Begins with an M, Manacero, something Manacero. Plays Charles, the third friend, the sort of geeky guy with glasses. His mom like drives him to this party, and when they show up at the party, Dino is all, "Mom, don't stop here, keep going," like further down the street so they don't see the crappy car they show up in. And then these like punks in a souped up Camaro stop by as they're getting out, and the guy yells out, "Hey dweebs, does mommy hold your dicks when you're pissed?" And then there's a great confrontation later on with those same sort of assholes later on in the movie. So at this party, they're just hanging out, talking about girls and what kind of cars they lose their virginity in. Lots of great moments. Cheesy 80s music. Very cool looking party. And then of course we see Heather Graham, Mercedes Lane, show up with her boyfriend at the time, Paolo. I hate to perspire. Very funny. She's sort of pissed at him for some reason, and then in sort of a panic, she says, "I have a date with this guy," and points at, of course, Corey Haim, and so she can get out of it, get away from her boyfriend. And then, of course, Corey and Dean talk about it later on. I'm not going to go through the whole movie because that's what the rate I'm going is at the moment. Anyway, it's a very funny movie. So many great lines. So some stuff happens. His dad comes to pick him up from school right in front of the girl, Heather Graham, and then he takes him out for a ride to drive the Cadillac. The Cadillac that the grandfather has lent them for the week because he's taking it on. He doesn't like taking it on long trips. He borrows his car, the dad's car, a BMW, and he loans him his Cadillac. This great light blue boat with the white top. Very cool, old school 60s Cadillac, and of course it's a big old thing. So yeah, he manages to pick up a Mercedes at one point. She's walking home and he offers her a ride home, and then that leads to one of my favorite moments in the film, and that's when they're back at Les's house and he's trying to study for his driving exam, which is the next day. And Dean and Charles are there helping him ask questions, and Natalie, his sister, played by Nina Semezko, is listening to classical music in the next room, and Corey Feldman goes, "And what is this shit?" And then goes on the telecom, the house telecom, "Natalie," and tells this great joke about her face on the bus or a train, something like that. Really funny moment. I just loved that moment. It was sort of a thing between me and my friends in high school. Whenever we knew or heard of a girl named Natalie, we'd yell out, "Natalie!" Just like the way Corey Feldman does it. So then the next day, Corey and his sister, because they're a twin brother and sister, both go to take their driving test. Very interesting, very 80s computer-styled driving test. I believe, at least when I took it, we just went and filled out like all the questions on like a long sheet of paper. But in this movie, it's like 30 questions on a computer screen, and you get multiple choice A, B, or C. And if you get more than 5 wrong, which Les does, he gets 6 wrong, and then he gets up and in a fit of despair bangs on the computer, shorts out the whole system, so everybody who is also taking the test at the time can't finish their test. But then the DMV woman, who's really cool, well, she's not cool, but she's very sort of iconic in this movie, crazy red hair, very interesting voice, tells Corey Haim that he can take his actual road test, the driving exam, because his sister got a perfect score. Of course, she's definitely a nerd, and but he's allowed to take his driving exam. And the driving exam scene is one of my favorites because Natalie gets like the most cake driving test in the world. This sort of good-looking surfer dude gets in the car and like looks her up and down and says, I forget what he says, but it's definitely sort of there's a sexual connotation, and he takes her down like very quiet suburban neighborhoods. She goes up this hill. He says, "Let's see how you handle this hill," and it's like it's not even very much of a hill. Very, very good. This is very funny. And then opposed to that, Les gets this sort of mean African American driving instructor, and at the beginning of the exam, he takes his clipboard out, and he says, "You see this?" and throws it out the window. I don't believe in him, and then he shows him his cup of coffee. Now that coffee's hot, filled to the brim. If it's spilled on me, it'll probably burn me, right? And so that's his whole driving exam. If he spills the cup of coffee, he's gonna fail. So, and then of course he gets taken out into rush hour traffic. There's a great moment during the test, and it's a line I use since I've been driving ever since. He comes up to this hill and asks to make a stop, and then this old couple pulls up behind him, and they're leaning on the horn for Corey to go. And the driving instructor says, "What are you waiting for, son? Christmas?" That's the line I use while I'm driving. If people are like at a light in front of me and the light turns green and they don't go, I'll say stuff like, I'll say that exact line. "What are you waiting for, son? Christmas?" And then of course he has to parallel park in the most tiniest space, as opposed to his sister, who gets like the hugest gap to make a parallel park. And he says, "I want you to make a parallel park right in here." And Corey Haim goes, "In here?" And he's all, "What am I speaking Greek? In here." Another term I use, of course, that's used in lots of movies and so on. Yeah, just great one-liners like that is why I love this movie. So eventually he comes home. He fails the test. I skipped the cool part at the DMV. He's about to get his license. He takes a picture, has a goofy picture for the license, and then the DMV lady with the red hair comes up to him and says, I don't know exactly why she says, "Gone, give us," and the DMV taketh away, and then she takes his license, rips it up, but she says, "Mr. Anderson, you mustn't fuck with the Department of Motor Vehicles," probably the quote of the movie, if you had to pick one. So he goes home in shame after failing his driving test. And then his parents find out, even though he lies about it at first. He gets grounded for a couple weeks, that sort of thing. Can't take the car out for the weekend, supposedly so he can go on this big date with Heather Graham, Mercedes Lane. But he does anyway. She calls him up at like 11:30. I still find it hard to believe like that late at night. It's like, yeah, let's go out 11:30. But she does it anyway, and then he goes over there and picks her up. They have a nice time. They go to a bar. They run into her old boyfriend Paolo with some new girl, a very exotic looking girl in a blue dress. So she gets bombed. She grabs a bottle of champagne and starts drinking, and he takes her to this sort of romantic, sort of cliff lovers lane type place. I love, and then you get some of the most famous music from this movie. It's not necessarily the soundtrack per se, but this was sort of my introduction, especially at the time, to Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra is a big part of this movie and his songs, because those are the tapes that his grandfather would play in his Cadillac, and Les is driving the Cadillac all night. He has to steal the Cadillac from the garage before he can go out and take Mercedes out for the night. So he's playing "Strangers in the Night" while they're dancing on the hood of the Cadillac, and later on, when the drunk steals the car at the end of the movie, and they're trying to chase him down in the yellow VW Bug, you hear "That's Life." He's singing along to that. All these great Frank Sinatra tunes, and I didn't really care for them at the time. Frank Sinatra, that kind of music, but now I'm very much into that old school crooners from the 50s and 60s, Dean Martin and so on. So yeah, that's sort of a cool thing about this movie as well. But the soundtrack is great as well. Of course, you have some good songs. The song at the end during the credits, "Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car" by Billy Ocean. You've got some tracks by Belinda Carlisle on the soundtrack, New Edition. There's even one by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, of course, Will Smith's old group. Yeah, so he takes out Mercedes for the night. She gets drunk and passed out. The car sort of gets scratched up a little, and then he, Dino, Corey Feldman, and Charles go out for the night. Corey Feldman is like, "Let's go to Archie's, man. Archie's Atomic, this great place." And they have a crazy wild night trying to get to Archie's and get back home and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, there's a big chase with the drunk who steals the Cadillac. At one point, they put Heather Graham in the trunk of the Cadillac, and then they get pulled over by cops looking for drunk drivers, and they open up the trunk, and she's in there, and she sort of smiles and waves at him, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" So many great moments. Obviously, this is way too long because I've been talking about like so many details of the movie. I absolutely love it. Let's just leave it at that. Corey Feldman, Heather Graham, just beautiful and gorgeous. A rite of passage for most American teenagers, getting your driver's license, and the hijinks that ensue in this film. I just love it. So many great lines, stuff I use today, and yeah, really cool week, to Corey's week. So check out the other guys' videos this week. Thank you for watching as always, and until next time, I'll see ya.
Bond. James Bond.